great. All right. Well, welcome, Sally and Priyanka. I'm so glad that you're here today. I'm excited for our conversation and to learn a little bit more about your background. My name is Lauren Brennan. I'm the Executive Director of Project Knitwell, and I'm really excited to learn more about how wellness and community and comfort of knitting is really something that's crucial to so many of us. And hearing Priyanka and Sally's perspective today is really something I've been looking forward to. I know that Priyanka has many pearls of wisdom to share, and I want to share her bio as an avid knitter who taught herself to knit from a children's book when she was 19 and has since amassed a massive neon yarn stash and a constant rotation of works in progress. Her debut novel, The City of Good Death, received the 2018 Restless Book Prize for New Immigrant Writing, was a finalist for the 2021 Center for Fiction First Novel Prize, and was named one of NPR's 2021 Books We Love. I'm also very excited to introduce Sally Moore from Parker Avenue Knits, who happened to learn to knit from her mother when she was 10 years old. And it became a passion of hers many years later. While exploring the process of entrepreneurship to create Parker Avenue Knits, Sally was also continuing to practice law on a full-time basis, but finds that her joy is in the many hours that she commits to making Parker Avenue a whole vibe for the fiber community in Detroit. So I'm really excited to hopefully celebrate with Parker Avenue and with Sally as they celebrate their first anniversary here in December 2022. And I hope that you'll follow along on their journey at Parker Avenue Knits 313 on Instagram and so forth. So I'm really excited to turn the conversation over to Priyanka and to hear more from her interview perspective, pearls from Priyanka, as I like to call it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Lauren, for moderating this. Thank you, Sally, for doing this. I'm so excited to talk and pick your knitting brain. And of course, thank you to Project Knitwell and the entire knitter community who's going to be watching this. So the first question that I want to ask you, Sally, is the question that I ask every new knitter who I meet, because it's the thing I'm most interested in. If you could just tell us the story of how you learned to knit.
My story is pretty quick. My mother knits and crochets and did all my life. I proudly tote around a picture of me in one of my crocheted little outfits. I was probably about 4. And somewhere around 10, she taught me how to knit. I never mastered crochet. She sat me down, taught me the process. It didn't stick. Life moved on. And then about 2007, 2007, 2008, I strolled into my local yarn store and didn't leave, and was still practicing law, but was always there. And the next thing you knew, I was there working for yarn because I was there so much. And then my journey continued, and I left Detroit and blah, 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 came back, started an entrepreneurial pursuit that was not a yarn shop, and woke up one day and said, after 4 years of plotting and planning and equipment and all sorts of things for my first thought, I just woke up one day and said, it's going to be a knit shop. Yeah. And poof.
And poof, simple as that. Well,
yeah.
Let's back up a little bit. What was the first project that you remember successfully completing, getting to the end and being really happy with it? What was the first thing that you made?
I know when I went back in 07, 08, the shop had a simple seamed cap. I still have that cap someplace.
You still have it. Oh.
I can't believe it was seamed because I am not a fan.
Yeah.
All my hats are in the round.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they chose that,
Mm.
but it was the simple seam cap and I finished it. Hats are one of the things I really do.
Yeah.
I'm a little more of a smaller project person.
Yeah.
So I do hats and baby gifts.
It's really interesting that you mentioned the year 2007 and 8, because even though I've been knitting for a very long time, I feel like it wasn't until around that year, I remember that year because I was in graduate school, that it wasn't until then where it kind of really took off for me, and that I started buying more indie dyers, really started buying more from, kind of transitioned from like Michael's yarn to like concentrating more on the fiber and the color that I was using and wanting to support LYSs and small businesses. So I wonder if somebody was to like do a timeline, like whether that was for whatever reason, a year where it just really started clicking for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I'm curious about that.
I don't know. It was the shop I was going to. It was in the city of Detroit proper, so we're obviously a very an urban area. So we weren't. It had a lot of the attributes of a stereotypical yarn shop,
Sure.
but by the same token, it also it had a little flavor because you had a bunch of urban people coming, city-wise people who had to come after work, after, not
Yeah.
little retirees who could come at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. So it was a little bit of a different vibe, but it was probably, fast forward to what I'm doing now in my shop, it was probably a peek into that true sense of community and not so exclusive, but really my first peek into an inclusive um, kind of space where you just had such a diverse crowd.
Sure. Well, I want to get back definitely talking about that piece of community and how that was one of the factors that drew you in. But let's go back to like the origins of Parker Avenue Knits, because you said poof, it just happened, but we all know it wasn't just a poof kind of moment. So just tell us the story of the shop opening. What besides being a knitter yourself prompted you to do this? What was how I know the story of how Parker Avenue Knits got a lot of its funding and kind of got its traction, but I think that's a story that's important for folks in the audience to hear as well.
Well, it was not easy. None of it's easy per se, but it is absolutely true that when you're doing something that you love, it doesn't feel like work most of the time. But I will tell you, it is very, very strange and out of character for me. I honestly have racked my brain and I have to just let it go because I do not remember when my initial journey, and not to be cryptic so people understand how strange this is.
Yeah.
I came back from New York. I moved back. I was working in Manhattan. I moved back. I thought coming back to Detroit, where I'm born and raised, and my family is, but somehow I am so much more New York than I am Detroit. Loved it there. And I came back just exploring an opportunity and was like, oh, this is, cosmopolitan thing to do. Go to another city, get another job. I was so sad and so miserable and missed New York and everything about it so much that I said, you know what? A manicure. That'll make me feel better. True story.
Well, manicures fix everything. I
They
think that's a
do.
well-known fact.
It's documented.
It is.
So I realized that what I was used to going to and getting in New York, I couldn't get here. And my time in New York is what really spurred me to be an entrepreneur. I had never wanted my own law firm. I never wanted my own business of any kind that looked like just way too much work. And I did not want it. So, but in watching New York, watching the speed, watching how you genuinely, make change and make a difference and all of these things that come with it, I loved the energy of it. And that's what instilled an entrepreneurial spirit in me. I come back here, I want a manicure, I can't find it. So I do the New York thing. Oh, well, you just build it. Fortunate in 2015, Detroit was coming out of its bankruptcy. There was a lot of push to create neighborhoods. truly have neighborhoods, and they were talking about the walkable neighborhood, and I likened it to the borough model in New York, which I always thought was a better way to deal with Detroit. Detroit is 138 square miles, and that is city proper, not metro area. We are geographically a huge, huge city. And so I felt like that was always a good idea, have the things people want to do right there where they are, so they don't have to travel so far. So I started down the road of going through programs, a lot of programs that to educate me on how to build a business, from writing a business plan, understanding my financials, analyzing my market, figuring out whether it's doable and profitable. Went through all of that, went through all these programs, and I promise you, one day I started that journey in 2015, got to end of 2021 and 2020, into 2020-ish. Anyway, February 2021, there's a pitch contest. It's for an organization, fabulous group, Michigan Women Forward. They were already funding me in one way for the nail salon. I decide they have this pitch, but it's got to be a new business. And this is the part that I just have like total amnesia over. I have no idea what happened that I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a yarn store. And I can't explain it. But I knew the business. It was easy for me to take everything I had learned, plug it into my business plan, work my numbers, see that it was doable. And I did the pitch contest and I won. And they were like one of these organizations that was not playing. Within 2 weeks, I had a $10,000 check in my mailbox, like no real strings attached other than my ego and my pride. They were local. They had, and again, it was that little God wink of community. These were people who were local, who said, we believe in you.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't let them down.
Yeah.
And so that's when I said, oh boy, we're doing this.
You know what I love about this story is just like that organic quality. Because for me as a writer, I know my best writing comes out of the things that I cannot plan, that I cannot anticipate, that when I have them, when they're down on the page, I'm like, well, where did that come from? And that's exactly what you're saying with your pitch, that you went in there, and then where did that come from? I'm opening a yarn shop. Where did that come from? That's so fabulous. Maybe this sounds like super granola crunchy, but I feel like that speaks to some other forces at play in our life.
Absolutely.
And at times we're just able to harness it and you're not in control of yourself, but it's something that needs to be channeled. It needs to be put out into the universe. And for you, you were that person who had to put an LYS out into the universe of Detroit. Well, you've mentioned community a bunch of times and you mentioned it before, and it's something I really want to talk about. So I have not yet been able to physically visit your shop, but you were so kind to give me a virtual tour because you decided to feature my book as the first book that you did for your Yarn Shops book club. And so I got to virtually see this wonderful circle of your customers. They happen to all be women. And then you also gave me a tour of both the outside of the shop. And for folks, if you're in Detroit, you have to go to Parker Avenue Knits for me, because I want to so desperately. But Sally has this incredible mural, this Alice in Wonderland mural on the window, and then just the shop itself. Oh my goodness, all the different yarns and the things that you have. There's a DJ booth. There's all these lovely community spaces. I'm blathering on, but what the real point I want to make is that even though I was only there virtually and not physically, the connection I felt with that circle of women who joined us for the book club was just so crackling and palpable. It was just such a lovely, warm group. And it gave me a taste of what it must be like to walk into that shop as a fiber artist and just walk into that circle of welcoming, inclusive community. So I just want to talk to you about that in terms of how intentional do you feel like that community is on your part? Or is it something that grew organically out of Parker Avenue Knits? Is this something where you make a concerted effort to kind of build it, or does it kind of create itself? And how much of it, of the mission of the shop itself, you know, how inherent was community to that initial vision of, you know, the shop's mission?
Well, it might be granola and it might be crunchy, but I tell everyone that the universe is running Parker Avenue. The universe runs it. I just lean into that. And I very much am into the energy. I have a wonderful gifted bundle of sage that has been smudged, but I keep it in the window, tucked in the corner. And I always tell people, just in case I'm feeling like something needs to.
We got that evil eye right there.
Yeah. You know, something I've got, I mean, in my space here, I've got my cranes, I've got all my
I have cranes too, Sally.
I have cranes, amethyst, my Buddha, my sage.
We got it all.
I got it all. I'm not taking any chances. So it is very much about the universe for me. The things I do have to do, the things I set to do, those things are very intentional. The layout, the physical setup of my shop, the fiber that I carry is very, very intentional. In that, if you ever come to the shop, if anybody, I'm always in there on Sundays. I'm always trying to jump on live for a few minutes, and I post a lot. So there's a lot of ways to see what it looks like. But the line I tell folks when they come is I failed retail 101 because I've lived a finite space, and there's what I call my living room. And it's a very comfortable and communal, just, chairs and a little chaise and, area where you can comfortably sit and gather. And I could have shelving in that space. I could have product in that space instead of struggling mightily to find some place to put the next product. But I won't do that, because having that space, having something that is physically welcoming like that, is absolutely important to me. And sometimes people may come and I always, screw up the quote, but the bottom line is, if you don't want to be in the light, we'll sit with you in the dark. And so we are very much into doing that. And it is very just something that happened. The other story that you'll find in a lot of things, and I share, but I think it's always worth sharing because it's true. As I started onto the last leg of this journey, kind of like, okay, folks, we got a space, we're doing this, we're, waiting on construction. Now it's time to, what do we put on the shelves? What do we sell? And how do we do that? Myself and 3 other women got together, and we would get together on Saturday. And we'd all jump in the car and we're like, okay, what yarn shop are we going to? Because we have a fair number in our area. So it was, what shop are we going to? Well, it was my sister, another friend who's a lifetime friend. She's a little older than me, but our families have been together our whole lives. And another friend of mine who I actually knew from the first yarn shop 15 years ago. So the 4 of us all posse up. Well, it just so happens that all 3 of those women are breast cancer survivors. So at the time, my sister was still in treatment. And actually during that journey, the other friend from the prior yarn shop, she actually had a little bit of a reoccurrence. So we're driving to one Saturday, and I'm driving, they're all chatting, and there's like this lighthearted but honest kind of laughter about puking and diarrhea. And I realized in that moment that I had created a community, They all didn't know, some knew one or the other, but they all didn't know each other. And through Parker Avenue, even before it was what it is, I had created a community.
Yeah.
And I realized at that point that if I never did anything else, I had completed my mission. And if I did more, then the mission was clear. Fast forward, I get started, I open up. I wish other people were doing this so it wouldn't sound like bragging, but I promise it's all true. People have walked in my door, looked around and said, I found my people. You are my tribe. And I'm like, I have never seen you before in my entire life, but come on in. So
Yeah.
that is, I've had people come in almost in tears. We have people in tears. We have people talking about how this saved their life. We have people who pick it up, who come in, take one class. We can't get rid of them. They won't leave. They just keep coming back. We learn things about them. They're,
Yeah.
people who have suffered loss, who have suffered, illness, who are just struggling, just getting through day to day, whatever their issues are. Some share, some don't. But even if we don't know what the struggle is, frequently, and I mean on the regular, people comment how much this space means to them, how happy they are that I'm here. I mean, it is so absolutely humbling to have someone tell you, I'm so glad you're here. I mean, it's everything.
Well, and it's such an interesting connection to the origin of the shop, and that you received that grant money and then you felt accountable to those folks who had given you that grant money to create something. And now it's almost like, well, you have an accountability to this community that the shop has engendered, that
Yes.
if you ever felt like a day came where you had to give it up, well, you're going to,
Yeah.
you're accountable to this community, because it would leave an incredible hole. And there's so many things in what you said that connect back to Project Knitwell's, mission in terms of their 3 tenets of wellness, comfort, and community. And I love that you mentioned that car ride with these 3 women who also happen to be in various stages of their breast cancer journey. And I had noticed on Instagram not too long ago, I think you had featured the member of your community. I think her name is Dondi, and you did this whole bare-breasted series. So if you'd like to talk a little bit more about that, in terms of, wellness, comfort, community, the ways that you've seen that play out in your shop. Like, you talk about these people who just walk in and they learn how to knit and then you can't get rid of them. But what are these like other stories that you might have been party to that have now just kind of become of the story of Parker Avenue Knits?
Each of those 3 women actually did at least one installation on those blogs, and each of them talked about, and I told them when October came, I said, I'm opening this up and turning this over to you all because you've earned the right, you've earned the right to tell it in your words, in your voice, in your way. And I think if you read all 3, they're very different. They each are at a different stage. And so they each have a different perspective, but they talk a lot about just having a place to go, having a space to be in that is going to let you do whatever it is you need to do, express in whatever way you need to express in that particular moment. But they all tie back to one of my themes in building the business was to impact socioeconomic and racial diversity. My focus was not necessarily meditative health when I first encountered this, but it all centered around the same premise that if we could sit across the table from each other doing something that we both loved, we could begin to see each other as just people.
Sure.
Sort of fast forward to, the whole, you don't look like a knitter. Who among us hasn't heard that one? You don't look like a knitter. So this allows those who, particularly those with physical and emotional challenges, to have a space where they can sit and they're not different and they're not standing out and you're not unusual and you're not all of these other things. And you don't have to sit in a group and talk about your depression, or sit in a group and talk about your cancer, or sit in a group and talk about your grief. You don't have to talk about those things, because we all know, don't talk to me while I'm counting.
Especially if you're knitting lace, Sally. Lace or Fair Isle, definitely.
Do not. And so, you know what? Nobody notices if you're just working your stitches quietly. It's not, oh, what's wrong? It's okay if you don't want to talk. You can still be, and we know that there is just being in space, getting out of that isolation and having a place to go. Think about it. Where do you go if you're not hanging out? Some of us, the hangout has hung out. I mean, it's gone. Wait, does the party end at 7:30? Because I gotta go.
No, if it starts at 7:30, even that's too late. I'm not leaving the house.
I'm not going to be able to make it. So it really creates, I really believe that the power is just in the space. And all you have to do, I hate that phrase, all you got to do is, one of my least favorite phrases, but one of the things you can do that is very helpful, and all of these women speak to it and others, is just be there.
Yeah.
Just be there.
Yeah.
But if you really think about it, just take a second and think, name a place that you can do that.
Yeah.
But where can you go? Where can you do that? And it doesn't really exist for a lot of people. And this is a space where you can just be.
That's really, really true. And I don't know that I've heard it worded in that way or pointed out that way so intentionally, but I'm realizing now, just listening to you talk, because I myself am incredibly introverted, and having any kind of social interaction, it can drain my battery very, very quickly. But to have, like any other human being, one needs a type of social interaction with people, and just being able to sit quietly doing your work without the expectation of any verbal communication. You're still getting all of that communal energy from the people around you. And if there are folks who want to talk, you can still absorb that, but it allows you to be within your comfort level, still enjoying others, and still kind of being able to share within that community in a way that's comfortable for you. And you're right, there are not a lot of places that allow for that, because you could go to a park bench and start knitting, but it's very, very different to be sitting next to somebody who's also just sitting there. But there's nothing intentional about it in the way that sitting in a knitting shop can be intentional. So one thing I'm curious about, Sally, is, you've created this incredible environment where knitters, both new and tried and tested, are able to come and really just avail themselves of all that your shop has to offer, both tangible and intangible. What kind of goals do you have for Parker Avenue Knits for in 5 years, 10 years, in terms of what you'd like to do with the shop itself, or what it might be able to do for the community, or anything?
Well, I'm very much interested in continuing our journey. I mean, I do want to do things that are a little more intentional, a little more fiber focused in terms of workshops, and definitely outreach. I actually just got another small grant last week Thank you. That it was specifically, I wrote it for taking this into the school. There's a school very close to my shop, and one of the principal there was a friend, and she comes to the shop, and she kept saying, well, there's this third grader who is just wants to come. She wants to come, and she doesn't live far in the neighborhood. Is a very diverse neighborhood. I mean, it's got $500,000 homes and, and housing projects, literally. And so, and of course, and she said, well, I'd love for her to come, but I can't transport her
Sure.
because, rules and regs. And so I said, look, let's start talking about how I come to you. And then again, the universe conspired, and this small grant came along, and they said, well, tell us how you would use this. And I was like, bing, I would have these classes. I would take it into the school, because one of the things that I love about fiber arts, knitting, crochet, is that it's intergenerational. And it creates a very easy way for 80 and 8 to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And that is very valuable and powerful, especially in this day and age when everything is the internet, the tablet, the Google. You don't know what's true, you don't know what isn't, and this instant add water. And all of the attributes that you gain from knitting, from the young who, honestly, I take my shoes off to count to 11. And math, I'm a lawyer, folks. I can only divide by 3 and add zeros. That's the only math we do. But my math literally has gotten better since working at the shop. It's like, oh, 24 stitches per inch. Okay, 24 stitches. Okay, well, that's 6 stitches an inch and blah, blah, blah. And that's a D. I'm like, look at me doing math. But I talk a lot about the math skills that are involved, that this is, I believe that stitch work, knitting and crocheting is really a fidget spinner with a better product at the end.
Yeah.
So it teaches patience, the hand-eye coordination, the opening up of the neural pathways, which I believe is why anyone who's ever knit can pick it back up and very quickly get back in the hang of it, because it's like riding a bike. It does something in your brain. It's something about the combination of the brain and the hands that you really don't forget it. And that plays out for our seniors. Because it keeps them active, it keeps their minds healthy and active, and it creates this conversation so that young people are not just looking at these little old ladies, and your great grandmother can have a conversation and maybe impart some things to you while you're sitting there that may not mean anything to you when you're 7 or 8, but long after she's gone, there's something that you will remember, even if you only remember the experience. I say to everyone, be careful who you teach, because no one ever forgets the person that taught them to stitch. I've never met anyone who said, well, who taught you? And they're like, I don't really. Nope. We always remember, if not the exact person, we'll certainly remember the circumstance. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, whatever, what a summer camp. We'll remember at least that, but there is something about that experience that people never forget. And so what I see for Avenue going forward is, in fact, that I want to continue to grow it from an educational standpoint, and then, continue to have the conversations and continue to diversify the image and the feel of it, so that we can continue to share, because it allows for diverse persons to sit together, to be a help to one another, because everybody's going through something.
Yeah, I love so many things about what you said. And the last thing you said about diversifying who knits, who can knit. I'm going to be so curious once you start this program in terms of the ratio of boys to girls that you have, because I have heard of schools setting this up as an after school program and the slots all fill up to boys. Like they all snatch the slots before even the girls get it, because as we know, everybody knits. It's
Yeah.
not, there are no, lines across gender. There should be no lines. I think for whatever reason, every decade creates these weird delineations between who can and who cannot. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see, what types of students you get, once you create that program.
Yeah.
So I had the absolute pleasure of being able to hang out with you one Saturday when you came to my park.
Yes. Oh, that was my pleasure. My pleasure.
Near Washington, D.C., and we got to do an incredible yarn crawl. And for me, it was really wonderful to be able to pick your brain as an LYS owner, because I'm sure I'm not the only knitter who's fantasized about having a yarn shop when I retire. And after talking to you, it became clear that I do not have the aptitude to ever pursue that as a profession. But I would love to hear from you, Sally, in terms of what has been like the experience or the thing that has most surprised you in this Parker Avenue Knits journey, if anything.
The rabbit hole, oh my gosh, the rabbit hole of products is infinite. I order yarn at 1 o'clock in the morning. I tell everybody I order around 1 o'clock in the morning because I'm so exhausted. I'm literally nodding off like a child or a puppy. And it's when I can finally hit the button and say, okay, this is what we're getting. This is what we're ordering. I'm done. Because it's infinite.
Yeah.
There is colorways and indie dyers and needles and hooks and doodads.
Yeah.
You cannot have it all.
Yeah.
So I steeled myself for that in the beginning. I literally was like, okay, you got to get comfortable. And in my real life, I'm seen as a very direct, my word, the appropriate word. Other people use some other words that are not quite so flattering. But I'm very direct about things. Yes, no. I mean, it's the nature of my job.
Sure.
But I had to get really comfortable with, no, I'm sorry, I don't carry that.
Yeah.
And be okay and not panic like, oh, I just missed a sale. I could have sold that.
Yeah.
You can't do that because there is absolutely, I knew it, but until you start going down the hole, you are like, where does it end? And the reality is it doesn't.
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland is the tip of the iceberg.
Oh my gosh. And it seems like you have to really kind of feel your way into a balance between what you enjoy personally as a knitter, but also what your customers are going to enjoy. But equally, I think more and more in the fiber world, there's a chance to be intentional about who you'd like to essentially support in your shop. Because, there are so many people working in fiber who have created, a mission in addition to not just making yarn or whatever the product is. And I know you've certainly done that. I've seen with the various products that you've decided to feature. I would be horrible. If I had a shop, it would just be like all neon. Everything would just be neon. And like if somebody walked in wanting a neutral, I'd be like, sorry, I don't care. Like who wants to knit with brown? Like who?
Well, you know what? And it's funny you say that because every time I try to go, okay, you are not I'm not a big blue person. So I'm like, Sally, pick up some blue, put some blue in this bucket, get one of the blues. I promise you, I get it. I put it in there and nobody buys it. I don't know if it's like this subliminal, and I only work in the shop really on the weekends. So I have other people who are there Wednesday through Friday. So it's not me steering people away, I promise. But what I pick seems to sell a little better and a little more sometimes than what other people pick. It's just an interesting kind of phenomenon. And to your point, yeah, it is hard to figure out. And sometimes I'll just say, this isn't moving. I never should have gotten this. We're just going to mark it down or something. And everybody around me is like, just calm down. The next day, it's everybody who comes in wants it. So yeah, trying to guess what people want is
Oh,
very, very hard. I won't give away all the secrets. I don't want people to think badly of me, but there's a reason why we have advertising. There's a reason why we have marketing. There's, I don't think you have to kind of know and feel and help people sometimes know what they want.
yeah.
But it's a mystery that wrapped in an enigma, I swear.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
so I have one more question for you, and you touched on a lot of this, but I think it's worth just asking it again directly. But why do you knit? And what does it bring into your life besides that tangible, whatever it is that you've decided to make?
I do it because I like the bragging rights. Not gonna lie,
It's totally part of it. Oh my gosh.
it is really a thing there is nothing like, and it's the gifting. Most knitters don't keep most of what they make. It's the gifting it, it's getting that picture back. I made a gift for someone's first baby, and they were very appreciative and the whole thing. The moment they had their second baby, I made something for their second baby. And then later on, I got a picture from them of the second baby in what I made for the first baby. And I was like, and mind you, the first was a boy, second was a girl. Glad I picked like a neutral green.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm heirloom status. Like, this is so dope.
Love
Like,
that.
someone thought enough of something I made to hold on to it, to care for it, to use it again. And so it's an opportunity to be in people's lives. It's an opportunity. I've learned this new term, an introverted extrovert. I think I qualify.
I think too.
But it's an opportunity to say to someone, I care about you, I love you, you matter. And maybe the relationship, that would be a little awkward, but that's what that handmade good says.
Yeah.
And so, but all the cliches are true. You just get so much when you give. I never knew, I had no way of knowing that when I opened this shop, people were going to love me, that people were going to care about me, that people were going to credit me with being something meaningful and someone meaningful that really brightened their lives. I couldn't have put that in a business plan. I couldn't have monetized that. I just couldn't. But that's what I got when I took that leap to give. And so that's why I knit. My mother is 88 and I opened the store last year, grand opening, day after Christmas. You know what she says to me? I didn't get a hat this year. I was a little busy. I got you a whole store. How about that?
There will be many, many hats. Many hats.
All the hats of the world. So, but being able to know that, that's our thing. She looks forward to getting her hat. And so I do it because it allows me to love and be loved. And that's just really all we got.
Yeah. Heirloom status. I feel like Ravelry needs to add that as like a tag you can put on like a project or something. Heirloom status. You're right.
Well, I've come up with an idea that Ravelry needs like a pop-up that's won't let you save anymore because it pops up and says you have exceeded your life expectancy.
I think based on like my queue and my favorites, like I need to like come back in 5 incarnations and remember how to knit to be able to knit
Yes,
everything that
exactly.
I've done. And it's also, I mean, I feel like you touched on something else, which for me is a barometer in my life in terms of relationships. Is this person knit worthy? Are they,
Oh,
because, you know,
girl.
well, because you've mentioned heirloom status, but a very, very important part of why it happened is because you made a wise choice in who you gifted that thing to. It was somebody who is going to appreciate it. Because all fiber artists out there know there are people in your life who will be like, oh, this is great, thanks. And then they never wear it.
Right.
They put it in the washing machine on hot and then in the dryer, or they lose it.
Yeah, don't look, people, this is a public service announcement. You get it, you slap it on the kid, you take the kid's picture, you take it off the kid.
Thank you. That's all we
It goes out of it. It disappears. I never know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, just send me the picture.
All we want is a picture.
All we
All we
want.
want is a
Is
picture.
it so hard? Is that so much to ask?
So true. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
have all been there, and we have all been like, oh no. You pick up the yarn, you look at the price, and you're like, yeah, no, they're not worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nope.
Exactly.
Not gonna do it.
And I'm pretty, I don't know, I'm pretty like, I like to think I'm a very kind and giving person, but like I do have people in my life who are like, will you knit me so-and-so? And I'll be like, sure, that will be $3,000 because that is how much my time is worth on an hourly basis. Other people, you know, like I'm knitting for them nonstop, but certain people, here's the bill.
Yeah,
This
no.
is what it will cost you. Oh my
You have
God.
when people ask, oh, do you knit? Can you make me this? You
Right.
gotta earn it. You gotta earn it.
Yeah.
You
really
just
gotta. I don't like being asked. I like just giving, you know, like I do not like being asked at all.
Yeah.
I'm ornery that way.
I'm same.
Well, Sally, this has been an incredible conversation. It's just been such a joy learning, just being able to share your Parker Avenue knit story with everybody out there, but also being able to share you with everybody out there who hasn't yet had the pleasure of meeting you in person. I'm going to leave a little bit of pause for Lauren in case you want to have a little bit of a room to cut Lauren before the speed round. Oops, I think she might have, did we lose her?
No, she's here.
Great.
You're-
I'm still here.
Oh,
I was
you're still
gonna
here.
put you together for the speed round, if that makes sense.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay.
Okay. All right. So with Project Knit Well, we've decided we're going to be doing this speed round of questions for all of the folks that we feature as part of this video series. So Sally, I'm going to do rapid fire questions for you. See if you can answer in one word. You're allowed more words if you like, but are you ready?
Ready.
Ready. Who taught you to knit?
Mom.
How old were you?
10.
What's your favorite thing about knitting?
Community.
What's the most challenging thing that you have made so far?
Ooh. Man, that's hard. I haven't done much hard stuff. Oh, that Sweet Georgia mystery knit along from summer 2022.
Yeah. Favorite time and place to knit?
At Parker Avenue on Friday nights.
Where do you find knitting inspiration?
Probably in nature.
And then favorite knitting technique?
Ooh. I like drop stitches.
Yeah. Knitting technique that you look forward to learning?
Brioche.
Oh, yeah. How many WIPs do you currently have, Sally Moore?
You know, I'm very contrary to judgment.
This is safe. This is a safe zone. This is judgment free.
Kind of judgy over here. Probably safely, I've got like 6 from this year.
You will get no judgment from me based on that number, I will tell you. Last question, to frog or not to frog?
Frog it. Did it yesterday. Frog it. Third of the way through. Didn't like it. Didn't love it. Frog it.
Sally Moore from Parker Avenue Knits. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you, guys. I can't thank you enough. I'm not worthy, but I will
You're
take
very
it
worthy.
and pass it along. Thank you guys for everything.
You're not only worthy, you're knit worthy. So you got the double.
Back at you.
All right.
Thank you so much. It was so fun to hear your conversation and so many. I feel like infinite was the word of the entire conversation, right? So many infinite conversations could grow out of what you were talking about. So I'm just so grateful that you were able to share all of your insights and the path that you've been on. And I'm so excited to see where it goes and to get there someday very soon, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes,
the
you
goal.
must, you must.
I'm very excited. So
Yeah.
I wonder if should we have Sally give you the questions,
Speed
Priyanka,
round?
or do you want to reverse the speed round?
Do you have the questions, Sally?
Are they in the email?
I can
Yeah,
put them in the chat. You want me
yeah,
to pop them in the chat?
Oh, yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, they were
Yeah.
they were in that
That would be
Google Doc.
Yeah. Would that be okay to
Yeah.
reverse them?
No,
And then
yeah.
we'll have
I think that
multiple
would be
voices.
fun.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
then you can feel all judged.
I'm wait till you hear my number
I only gave you the number for 1 year.
for 1 year.
let me spotlight you all again, and
I
then we
had to
can
think about what
I think it works well to have you both spotlighted. Do you
Oh,
like
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah,
Okay.
All right. You ready?
I'm
Hand
ready.
of the buzzer. So again, these are the speed round questions that Project Knitwell wants to ask everyone that goes through this interview. So we're going to turn the tables. Let's see. Who taught you to knit?
I taught myself out of a children's book.
How old were you?
I was 19 when I finally got it, but I had been trying to learn for many, many years before that, because this was before YouTube and before I had an LYS near where I lived.
What's your favorite aspect of knitting?
The fact that I can look at any knitted garment in a store and make it on my own.
What's your most significant or challenging project so far?
That would be the sweater that I'm wearing right now. This is the Free to
Yes.
Fly sweater. And I knit it in celebration of my novel coming out to match the hardcover book cover. It was challenging because it was Fair Isle. Every single one of these birds is essentially its own knitted chart. So it wasn't true Fair Isle. I did a fade in the background and a fade for the birds. And size 2 needles, I timed it. It took 2 hours to get through 5 rows.
Wow.
So yeah, that one takes the cake.
Yeah, you win. So, what's your favorite time and place to knit?
Oh, anytime, any place.
Where do you find your knitting inspiration?
Much like you, Sally, in nature. I think one of my favorite parts about knitting is choosing the yarn colors. And so I love seeing these incredible colors in nature and then being able to find yarns to match those colors.
That is absolutely, I agree. What's your favorite knitting technique?
Latvian braids or Vikal braids.
Yeah, that.
Those are those braids where when you knit them, they look like, like braided hair, like a braid. And they're so easy to do and they look so cool and complicated.
Wow, on my list.
Yeah.
What knitting technique do you look forward to learning?
I think And I'm not trying to sound cocky. I think at this point I have done everything, including brioche, but I would like to do a little bit more complicated brioche in terms of things that like Nancy Marchant is doing or Leslie Ann Robinson is doing.
Yeah, for sure. And how many works in progress? How many WIPs do you currently have?
I'm not sure. They're scattered in bags around my living situation. There's probably 10 to 15, possibly, maybe more.
We got to finish. We got to be a finisher. However, last question,
Yeah.
Frog or not frog?
Always frog. Frog it. Just rip it out. Take some time to get to that point, and that is allowed. Just like with a breakup. Rip that Band-Aid right off.
Just,
Rip it.
to be honest, yesterday when I made the decision, I handed it to somebody else and said, "Can you frog this for me?" And they were like, "Are you sure?" I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. So
you should offer that as a service in Perfect Happening Knits, where it's a frogging service so that somebody who can't stand to do it.
And you know what? It's so therapeutic. It's kind of like smashing pumpkins or throwing axes or something. It's that ripping that back and just watching it come undone. Of course, I should also offer therapy sessions where you get to sit and watch the swift.
Yes.
People love to watch the swift.
It's like a lava lamp. Oh, I
Yes.
totally agree. Yeah.
I see opportunities. I see opportunities.
It'll be like the Yule log on TV, Sally, that they do every Christmas
Yeah.
on CBS. Just have the Swift going.
Just the swift.
Oh,
Darn, you can't leave us alone.
Oh, so many opportunities. I can think of really exciting opportunities too to get together again in the future. And I hope that those of you that are listening can take some of the advice to heart and things about like the fidget spinner, but with a better end product, right? That's exciting. And I'm really looking forward to the next time that we all get to sit across the table together as well. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'm hopeful that we can pull together a highlight reel and share this with a lot of folks. So
yeah. Lauren, do you want to do the speed round?
I feel like it's cheating because I've heard the speed round, but I guess, yeah, I mean, everyone has a different
Why
speed
not?
round, right? Yeah.
Do you want to alternate, Sally? You and I will alternate asking
Yep.
the question.
We'll
Oh my
alternate.
goodness.
You
Okay,
start.
let's see.
Yeah.
Should I do, I guess if we're a threesome, there we go.
Yeah, we should do the threesome. Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Lauren Brennan, Executive Director of Project Knitwell. Who taught you to knit?
My grandmother.
How old were you?
I was 9 years old.
What's your favorite thing about knitting?
Gosh, there are so many favorite things, but I would, if I'm given one word, novelty. There's always something new to try.
What's your most challenging project so far?
Oh man, the dude sweater gave me a run for my money. Priyanka knows that story, but there is a dude scarf, which is a result of shortening the dude sweater that turned into a duster. So
Favorite time and place to knit?
end of the day, unwinding, if given a chance, while chatting with someone.
Where do you find knitting inspiration?
From new knitters. So newbies are really great at helping you figure out what the magic is behind knitting.
Favorite knitting technique?
Definitely mosaic knit stitches. So anything mosaic, those slip stitches are magic.
What technique do you look forward to learning?
An effective heel for a sock.
Yeah.
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 In the judgiest tone possible, Lauren, how many WIPs do you have?
So I'm pretty, I don't like leaving them to sit very long. I don't know if I shouldn't say that because no judgment either way, but I do generally have 3. So that on the go TV knit, a hard knit, right? That I really have to sit with in a brightly lit room with no interruption. And then we all have at least one, right? So then there's a third lapsed project that I just haven't come back to yet. And so generally there's always those three lazing around.
Frog or knots?
Knots, no frogging. Everything's a
Oh.
design element. You can make it work. Make it work. And there's too
Great.
much yarn. There's too much yarn to knit to spend time knitting the same yarn again.
That's
Finishes
really
and doesn't frog. Oh, we are so not the same person.
Oh, sorry. It's okay. Opposites attract,
We're
right?
still okay. See?
yes. See,
Absolutely.
you can have a diversity of opinion and thought, and you still get along.
Absolutely. And across
Well.
the table while knitting, right?
We're taking this to Congress, ladies.
Absolutely.
It's the only way to go.
Yeah. And I so appreciate your insights on how creating healthier communities can happen while knitting. And I'm so, so excited to see where Parker Avenue goes. And we're going to get you another book cover sweater someday, Priyanka. Someday. That's my dream.
Absolutely. Thank
It-
you, ladies, so
Thanks
much
again.
for everything.
This has
Thank
been
you. All the
amazing.
best. This has been incredible.